Welcome to the woods. Beautiful day here today. Blue skies, sun shining, birds singing. It's all good in the wood. Now this video is called Who's Running the Show? And it's been prompted by a couple of conversations I've had over the last couple of weeks. And initially I've been surprised that the amount of people I've spoken to, and most of them think the government is in control of the situation or in control of the country. But I shouldn't have been surprised. Most people aren't politically engaged or haven't looked into this. So I'm going to try and break this down and give you my take on what's happening. The first thing I'm going to discuss is the UK's national debt. It's not discussed very often. You will usually hear politicians talking about the deficit, which is the difference between the taxation they get in and the money they've got to spend out, and they're trying to reduce that deficit gap. But our national debt is the money we've borrowed from banks, and at the moment that's running at just over £1 trillion. Now £1 trillion sounds like a lot, and it is. But £1 trillion sounds like a billion, and a billion sounds like a million, so sometimes it's difficult to get it into context. So I'll try and point it out. The interest on that trillion is running at £5,500 every second. £5,500 a second. That's just the interest on it. £20 million a day. £185 billion a year. So it's a lot of money, and the government has to pay that. It's beholden to those banks. And it also knows at the end of the year it's going to have to borrow some more money, because it's never going to have enough. Now, relate that to your own life. You've probably got a house and a mortgage, and you tell people you own your own home, when in reality the bank owns that home. And if you don't make those payments every month, the bank will take that house back. It's the bank that has the power. And the same with your credit card. You can pretend you've got thousands of pounds, and you can go shopping and put it on your credit card, and you can fill up your car at the petrol station and put it on your credit card. You can fly off to Marbella for 2 weeks and put it on your credit card. But every month you've got to make those payments, and if you don't, the credit card company will take away your ability to pretend you've got thousands of pounds and ask for all the money you owe them to be paid back. So it's the banks that have the power. And it's no different with the government. They owe a lot of money, they've got to make the payments. So where does the government get its money from? It doesn't just poof it out of thin air. The government hasn't got its own money. It's got our money, which it raises through taxation. So let's put that 185 billion a year interest payment in perspective. The population is taxed at income source, so it's income tax, the direct taxation. And that, collected by the government at the moment, is about 185 billion a year. So through taxing every single person that's working, all of that money coming in would only cover the interest payments on the loan we've got. Does that sound like a financial situation that's working for the country? Or even for you? If your wages didn't even cover the interest payments on a loan you had, would you be worried? Now there are other taxation avenues that the government gets money from. Now, business tax accounts for about 40% of taxation. But that's not coming from big business. You see, the government has to have people in employment. And those big global corporations like Google, like Amazon, like Starbucks, that pay no tax, employ thousands and thousands of people. And in order for them to do that, they don't want to pay tax. They've got the government over a barrel. So you see, the business tax comes from all those small business holders, not the big business. Those global corporations and the banks need the people to be working so that they can consume. The banks need them to borrow money, otherwise the system grinds to a halt. And the corporations need them to be buying the stuff, otherwise there's no point in them being in business. Now you see, there's another problem. The UK has what's known as a declining birth rate. So that means our population gets older, people stop working but still continue to cost money in pensions, hospital visits. There's less young people going into the workforce. So the government's now in a really tricky position. Whereas the number of people working is going down, yet its bill is going up. How does it get out of that? Well, they came up with an idea, which was to simply import millions of people from Africa and Asia at working age and put them to work in the country, therefore replacing the working population that was here. But it didn't work. After years of studies, it's been shown that the taxation coming in from the immigrant population and the money going out in welfare and everything else that needs to be done, there's about a £10 billion shortfall each year. Which means that that idea of importing millions of people in hasn't worked at all. It's actually costing us £10 billion a year. So now the government has less money coming in. And in fact, you're paying £10 billion a year to have people here doing jobs you could be doing, which doesn't make sense. Now the banks are happy because people are borrowing, and the global corporations are happy because they've got people spending. But the government really has nowhere to turn now. It's getting less money and with a higher bill. So what does it do? Well, it's trying to increase employment. The problem with that is that these large corporations now are backing out of the employment contract. So instead of keeping employment artificially high, they're using technology, AI. The rollout of 5G is going to increase this dramatically. In America, we're already looking at driverless vehicles for transportation. In Milton Keynes in the UK, they're now using GPS guided robots for deliveries. As the factories become more and more automated, the employment will go down. The welfare bill will go up. And something's going to give. Something's got to give. Because the people won't be working. Therefore the government can't tax them. They're not going to be borrowing because they'll have no way of paying it back. And they'll have no money to spend on the goods and services that these corporations are manufacturing. So the system has reached a point where it cannot continue. It can't continue. And it's been coming for a while. You see, as the world population rises and people consume more and more and more, and people borrow more and more to consume more and more, it's a bit like wondering why every time you take a biscuit out of the biscuit barrel, eventually it ends up empty. We can't carry on consuming the way we're consuming. And I think people have recognised that. And the financial system is built on exponential borrowing, which can't continue either. Governments can't continue borrowing, and people won't be able to continue borrowing when they've got no means of paying it back, which means that system has got to come to an end. Which means a new system's on the way. And if they're going to introduce a new system, it's going to mean upheaval. And things are going to happen which a lot of people won't be happy with. So in order for them to remain in control, they're going to have to control the population. And I'm fairly sure that that's what's happening at the moment. The COVID-19 pandemic was used as a test ground for control. Was there a virus? Most certainly. Was it deadly? Definitely. But to a very, very small percentage of the population. In the UK, 91% of deaths were over 80 years old. And no death's a good thing. Over 80 years old and also suffering from other illnesses, kidney failure, diabetes, respiratory problems. So 91% of deaths were of people in that bracket. And the deaths recorded included a lot of people that didn't die from COVID-19. And they've been quite honest about that. They've stated that anybody who tested positive, who died, initially it was 3 months, but now it's a month, that died within a month of that test, regardless of how they died, was listed as a COVID-19 death. That's a bit like saying someone died of having ginger hair because when they died they had ginger hair. It doesn't mean that's what killed them. Worldwide deaths by COVID is around 650,000. If you take off the ones that probably weren't COVID or people died with it but not of it, you're probably looking at half that, so 300,000. It's a lot of people. Now, most of them would have been very old, most of them would have been very ill. But 300,000 worldwide, even 600,000 worldwide, is nothing. Absolutely nothing. So why would they shut down everything? Not just here, but across the globe. Why do that if it's not actually that serious? Now, I'm not going to give you all the facts, figures and everything. If you really want some good information on the COVID-19, go and check out Computing Forever. Fantastic channel on YouTube. He did a video every week through lockdown, but go and check it out. What I will say is they've put in place a pretty good test ground for what I think they're going to need to do to control the population if the financial system's about to change and the consumer system is about to change. But you need to think about that. You need to think about how you're going to feel when you are told when you can go out, how long you can go out for, who you can meet, where you can meet, how often you can go to the shops and what you can buy, how often you can buy it, when you can go to work and who you can work for. Because all of that is on the horizon. Now maybe you'll be alright with that. Maybe you'll be okay with someone saying you're allowed out twice a week. Apart from that, stay at home. That you can go and work, but you need to go and work for these people at this place. That you can go shopping, but here's the stuff you can buy, and you can buy nothing else. Maybe you'd be alright with that. Or maybe not. Who knows? That's just my take on it. But for those of you who think the government's in control, not a chance. Look into it. Do your own research. The country's bankrupt. It's beholden to the banks. The only thing keeping it afloat is global corporations. So they're also beholden to them. So the people running the show, banks, global corporations. Do they care about you? Not one jot. Stay safe, people. Speak to you soon.